Hello and welcome to CMR TV. My name is Tamsin DC Weinstein and I'm going to be bringing you the AI wave. This week I'll be telling you about the latest developments in the world of AI. Whether you're using it in the boardroom or just want to learn about how to use AI at home, there's something for everyone. I'll be interviewing global leaders who are using AI to change the world, but also local people who are using it in their daily lives. Let's dive in together and ride the AI wave. Good afternoon and welcome to the AI wave. I have a very, very special guest here today. Actually, somebody that I personally am a very big fan of, Dr. Kyle David. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
So a bit of background to Dr. David. I got heavily involved in AI governance about a year ago, and it was something that I wanted to take a lot more responsibly and look into a lot more, probably about 12 months ago. And I spent a lot of time researching on the internet, who is the best person to learn from, who is the best person to delve deeper into this with. And all of the online forums and websites and LinkedIn searches pointed to you. So I started following you on LinkedIn and I looked at your courses that you have all over the internet, and you truly are such a fountain of knowledge on privacy in general, but also governance. And so thank you very much for all you do. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. So thank you for those kind words and that very kind introduction. I think people very often come across me just because I'm a career educator and communicator.
Yes.
So I think I do have a way of communicating things in a way that click with most people right away. And I think as we get talking about AI governance later, we'll talk about the importance of AI literacy and education. And that's one of my primary missions right now. So I am a career educator, as I said just a moment ago. I graduated from the University of Florida in 2005, moved overseas. I taught English as a foreign language for almost a decade. And then in 2014, moved back to the United States, where I pursued a PhD in modern Chinese history. So for most of my adult life, I knew nothing about AI or privacy or cybersecurity. I wanted to be a university professor and retire on some sleepy college campus in my 80s, right? Surrounded by, undergraduate students. That's what I was going to do. And then COVID happened. And COVID, the beginning of the COVID lockdowns, was my final year on the academic job market. Before that job cycle even started, there were nationwide hiring freezes here in the United States. So before I even got onto the job market, there was no job market to get onto. So with a very small family, I had to pivot very quickly. Through, a number of people, I learned about the Presidential Management Fellows Program, which used to be a program in the U.S. federal government to recruit overeducated people into the federal civil service. Fantastic program. I got picked up by the U.S. Department of Energy in their Office of Privacy Management and Compliance. That's where I started learning about privacy, cybersecurity, data protection. And then when things with AI really started picking up in 2023, they needed someone to start learning AI and to teach that to the workforce. My career in education continued there, teaching federal privacy, AI literacy, and so forth. Dr. David started as a side hustle at the beginning of 2024, and really over the first 18 months, through the wonderful feedback from people like you, I decided I needed to make it to my full-time job, and I've been doing Dr. David full-time since mid-2025.
Amazing. What a story. And I think that's one of the really interesting things that you explained it perfectly. You are such a good educator, and I'm going through one of your accelerator programs now for people who truly want to learn about governance, privacy. You explain everything so perfectly, and you really, for me, it's surprising that you've only been in that arena for a few years, because your knowledge is so deep in those areas. And, you explain things so perfectly with the practical and the theoretical. You have such a deep knowledge, and it's obvious how much you learn about it personally as well. And your knowledge is constantly up to date. Like, you are always reading about it and developing. So I think it's, it's a testament.
It's twists and turns and where it takes us. Again, my whole adult life has been devoted to education. I think, another thing about just my own personal story that appeals to people in our particular moment right now is everyone wants, not everyone, but a lot of people, most people want to learn about AI. They want to learn how to use it. They want to learn how it works. They want to learn how to management, how to leverage it to help them, to benefit their careers and get them ahead. And, part of my story is that, my PhD is in history. It's not in computer science. I don't have a very deep technical background. These are all things that I picked up much later in my life, beginning in my late 30s and, through now to my early 40s. And so I lead with that because I want people to know that technology, data protection, privacy, AI, cybersecurity, it doesn't require anything to start, right? You can start anywhere. And if you're consistent, if you love to learn, if you love to read, and if you just put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, you can learn things and you can learn them really quickly.
That's a great point, actually, because I think, I mean, my view is that AI still scares a lot of people because they see it as purely being for people with a technical background. And for me, it's one of the biggest technical disruptors in the world that is for people who don't have a technical background because AI is so vast and it's such a broad spectrum that most people excelling in it, or a lot of people excelling in it, have no technical background at all. And I always say to people, obviously, it depends what part of AI you go into, but it's as much of a creative art as it is a technical subject. And like you say, the governance and privacy aspect is something else again, completely. So, what made you go into the governance and privacy aspect? Was it just that that was where the demand was in your retraining, or was it a personal passion?
It really started with privacy. And so it was through privacy that I was introduced to the world of information technology, to cybersecurity, and then to AI. At the time, as I was completing my PhD, one of the headlines that was very prominent was WeChat. And so this is a messaging app. It's
Yeah.
really kind of like the Swiss Army knife of apps in China. And so I spent 8 years continuously living in China. As I was completing my PhD, I traveled back and forth. And so I have well over a decade of experience living in that country. And, again, WeChat, it's this Swiss Army knife of an app. Everybody uses it. And there were a lot of people in America that were using this in the 2010s. And there were privacy concerns, there were data concerns about WeChat.
Yeah.
And I believe it was under the first Trump administration, there was talk about banning the chat We app. Sorry, the chat We, the app WeChat. There was talk about banning the app. And that's really where I started learning a little bit more about privacy and data protection. And so when the opportunity to join the Department of Energy and their Office of Privacy Management and Compliance popped up, I was already kind of familiar with, the top level privacy concerns.
Yes.
And then, when AI popped up, of course, data is central to artificial intelligence, to building, scaling robust models for a variety of purposes. And so I knew that privacy had a place in artificial intelligence. Me just wanting to learn everything I could to be a better privacy analyst, I learned cybersecurity. I also wanted to learn artificial intelligence. And as I started learning about AI governance, and then started teaching it, I mean, the demand was just massive. And so I very quickly pivoted from someone that was primarily a privacy person to now someone who's primarily an AI governance person.
Yeah.
And that's come with its own challenges. I've had to, I've started teaching myself how to actually build models, teaching
Amazing.
myself a little bit of data science, and I'm like in the very early processes of it. I'm taking a certificate course at MIT on that. And then I'm also currently going through the ISO 42001 lead auditor certification program. So all of this is really just because I love learning. This is my full-time job, and I feel ultimately it's going to make me a better educator so that, when I come across fantastic people like you with really good questions, I can answer them to the best of my ability.
Amazing.
Right. So I think we could probably start with maybe these three different disciplines, right? Or the discipline of privacy and data protection, and even those two terms, privacy and data protection, we could drive a wedge there if we wanted to. Cybersecurity, and then artificial intelligence, and really AI is something that is combining all of this. And so I feel if you want to be really good at managing AI related risk, you're going to need to be familiar with privacy. You're going to need to be familiar with cybersecurity, and a number of other things as well. So when it comes to privacy, we're typically talking about protecting personal data or personally identifiable information and the rights of the people from whom that data is derived. And so we're looking at not just protecting data, but making sure that within whatever jurisdiction we're in, that the data subject, again, the person who from whom that data is derived, that if they have a right to access, to rectification, to erasure, that the organization that owns that data is helping to facilitate those rights. And so, just to give you, an example that's near and dear to my heart, the U.S. federal government has a law. It's called the Privacy Act of 1974, and it governs how the U.S. federal government collects and processes personally identifiable information. And a right that U.S. citizens have under the Privacy Act is that of access. So if, for example, I believe that the Department of Homeland Security has my personal data, I can request access to that data to review it. And then if that data is incorrect, then I can request that that data be corrected. And so again, privacy, this is the protection of personal data, safeguarding it, making sure that malicious actors don't get hold of that. We're not over collecting that data. And then also protecting the rights of the people whose data that is collected from.
Yeah.
So that's privacy and data protection at a high level. Cybersecurity is the securing of networks. So think about it, an organization's online network, their connection to the internet, making sure that databases are protected, that bad guys aren't able to come in and access resources that they're not supposed to. So privacy and cybersecurity, work very closely together. If I have a database of personal data, I want to make sure that it's secured, that we don't have unauthorized access, that data isn't being manipulated or altered, and that data is available for whoever wants to use it whenever it needs to be used. And then finally, we have artificial intelligence, and I think there's a lot to talk about that. But essentially, this is a branch of computer science that is oriented towards creating machines that can emulate human intelligence. The type of artificial intelligence that is all the rave today is machine learning, and more specifically, neural networks or deep learning. And these are algorithms that are learning from historical data. They're learning the statistical representations of that data, underlying that data. And then once a model is trained, once it is learned, you can give it data it hasn't seen before, and it can make predictions or it can classify. In short, it can generate outputs based on that historical representation. And if you're training an AI model on personal data, then we need to make sure that there are protections put in place so that that personal data, again, it's not abused. We want to make sure that the data subjects know that that data is being used, and so forth and so on.
So I'm thinking about our audience, and we will have a real mix of people watching and listening. Some of them will be business owners, and some of them will be individuals who are just using AI themselves in their daily lives. Talking about the things that we've just talked about in terms of privacy and cybersecurity. Let's start with the business owners. What are the key things that
This is that we don't want to be bringing AI systems into our network or environment that aren't solving a very particular issue. And so the very first question is, if the business is interested in adopting AI, what is our business problem and what is the best solution for that problem? Does it have to be AI, or is there some traditional software or other solution that doesn't require the same degree of maintenance, of hand-holding, and upkeep that AI does? And so that's what I would start first with, is what is our specific business problem? What is the best solution to that problem? Is it AI? Great, then that's another bundle of questions. If not, then, checking out what those other solutions may be. If you do decide to bring artificial intelligence in, the next question is, are you going to be building something in-house based on proprietary organization or enterprise data? Or are you going to be purchasing something that's off the shelf? Are you going to be using a commercial model? Maybe, for example, just buying licenses to ChatGPT or to Gemini or to Claude. And that's really important for a couple reasons. If you're just purchasing licenses, for your whole organization, let's say it's 10, 50 people or so forth, any data, any documents that are being uploaded to, well, we'll just say ChatGPT for analysis, that data, those uploads now are on OpenAI's servers. And if there's personal data that is in those documents, and that personal data was given from the data subjects to you going to be used by your organization, then in uploading that personal data to OpenAI servers, you may have just instituted a data breach, okay? And depending on the jurisdiction in which you operate, that could be a pause or not quite as stringent in most states as they are overseas in places like the European Union. So there's a lot more to get into with regards to data subject rights, what you can and can't do with personal and proprietary data. So, I mean, let's say that your organization's secret sauce, your trade secrets are in these documents. You upload them to OpenAI. That data is now on their servers. And depending on the arrangement that you have with OpenAI, they may or may not be able to use that data to retrain future models, meaning that it's possible that with the right type of actor, they could extract that proprietary information from the model, and now they have your secret sauce, which you don't want. So I would say, those are probably the big two things, right? Is number one, do you even need AI? Number two, what type of model is going to help that you need to go over with regards to how you're going to use it, uploading personal data, proprietary comfort.
Thinking about your personal views on this, it's something I get asked a lot about, what can we upload, what can't we upload, when are they going to solve this issue? There's obviously a lot of tools on the market where you get enterprise level security or top grade security so companies come to me a lot and say, when are we going to be able to use AI? What they tend to do is just lock it down now so staff cannot use it at all. What do you think personally about, I mean, it's a huge gap in the market, isn't it? I don't believe that there's not lots of people working on this. Do you think we will soon be at a pivotal point where security will be available to all?
It's really important for the audience, I think, because it also touches on everyone. And then I'll answer your main question.
Yeah.
You probably, if your organization is trying to lock down AI, right? So on our networks, on our devices, you can't access it. Dollars to donuts, your employees are still using it for work, but just on their personal devices. Okay. So I really feel like that's the best approach is being thoughtful about what your acceptable use policies should be and AI education. AI 101, AI literacy for everyone. Because I feel, and again, this is just the lifelong educator in me, I feel when people know what to do and how to do the right thing, they are more likely to do the right thing, right? They're more likely to understand that, wow, I didn't know that an account number was so important and I shouldn't upload it or whatnot. So I just wanted to put that out there. Not engaging with AI is a choice. And then, so back to the security issue, a happy medium, and it does cost more, is just to spin up your organization's own instance of a chatbot, of an LLM, if you're interested in doing that, on your own secure servers. And so you would take ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, you would take that model, you would put it in its own container only for your organization. And it may be cut off from the internet, okay? But you could still use it to summarize documents, to do data analysis. It's still going to have all of the capabilities. It just means that its memory is going to be cut, right? But it's going to limit, it's going to keep there from being any unauthorized data breaches of personal data, for example, because your organization owns that server. and you're uploading the data into the large language model, but it's not going onto OpenAI servers. It's not going onto Google servers. It's on your organization's server. So it's the best of both worlds. It would be a little, I think, for a reasonable number.
How many people are you seeing doing this? Are you talking to lots of people on the market who are using this as an option? Or do you think it's still relatively new that people, they still think it's going to be an astronomical cost?
So I don't know how people are feeling about that now. I haven't spoken to that many business owners about this particular problem, but I know this has been something that's been around for a while.
Yes.
And when I was still with the US Department, our department's own version of Gemini, and it was Gemini 1.5 Flash at the time,
Oh, wow.
helping with the privacy impact assessment for that. And that's what we did is we worked with Google to have our own server that was owned by the Department of Energy. We put instance of Gemini in there, and therefore we still had very strict policies on what we could and could not upload to it.
Yes.
But all of the documents that went in there, it was the Department of Energy's server. And so therefore, if something got through that wasn't supposed to, the impact or the severity of that harm was lessened because it was still on our servers.
Very
Another
interesting.
thing that you can do, and this is like a useful AI 101 for people, is you can do you put filters, right? You put a filter on the front end, a filter on the back end. And so if you don't want the LLM to accept social security numbers or, bank account numbers or other types of personal data, then you can put a content filter that says, if any document is uploaded that looks like this, don't accept it. Or you can just say, don't upload documents, right? You can't upload documents. You can only do spectrum of controls that you can use you know, to prevent people from doing things that you don't want them to. That way, they still have access to some of the productivity efficiencies for summarizing or generating first drafts, for asking questions or for clarifying concepts and so forth without, pushing them 100% to their own personal device. Like Shadow IT, we now have Shadow AI, and it's just when
Yeah.
people are using AI on their own devices for work purposes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like you say, you are never going to stop people from using it, and nor should you, because, on one hand, we're all saying everybody has to learn these skills because you'll be unemployable without them. And on the other hand, companies are so scared they're locking it down. And I think it's finding a happy medium, isn't it? I speak to some companies that are very gung ho and they're willing to take the security risk because they're more scared of losing market share by not being competitive. And then some companies are the other way and they're saying, I'm less worried about losing market share. I'm more worried about security. So it feels like we're all doing this balancing act at the moment and nobody really knows where the line is. And I suppose it depends on the sector or the business type. But it's a tough one. We're in this tough time with AI at the moment that we haven't quite made it to where we need to be. What's your view on, so I remember about September last year, and I remember thinking 2026 is going to be the year that governance blows up in AI, that the jobs are going to become abundant because we've kind of spent a couple of years running, catching up with AI, and now we're putting the brakes on a bit and going, right now we have to start governing it properly. What's your view on it? Do you think it's a big job mark for education?
Well, 100% for upskilling. There were a number of reports that came out at the end of 2025 and early 2026 that demonstrate without a shadow of doubt that folks in the C-suite, board members, all see the importance of AI, the value that it's going to add to their organization. They understand the risks that deploying AI create for their organization, and that there's a gap in skills and capabilities to appropriately manage that risk.
Yeah.
So they know AI is going to be important. They want to deploy it or are already deploying it. They understand the risks and they don't yet quite have the skills that, the right people in the right places to manage that risk. So I do feel that we are, just around the corner from there being an explosion in demand for those types of skill sets. I can't remember all of the reports, but Deloitte had one out in 2026, and they, in January, so just last month, where they were specifically surveying leaders for talent gap. And I believe only 22% of respondents said that they were very confident that their organizations had the skills necessary to appropriately manage risk. And then if you look just more broadly, again, leaders, C-suite, board members, they're all saying that AI poses unique risks to their organization, and these risks require a certain skill set. So I do feel that it is right around the corner. I feel like you're starting to see it. There's certainly a tremendous demand for this upskill training, right? People want to understand AI. They want to get a foundational understanding of how the technology works, of the main laws and regulations that are shaping the governance environment, and then what the unique risks are throughout the AI development lifecycle. So there's a strong demand there. I think we maybe need to wait a little bit for budgets to pick up and for those resources to be available. But I do see this as being a really hot job. And last thing I'll say on that, LinkedIn for 2 years in a row has said that AI consultant is the second fastest growing job in the world. And when you look at the skill set they use to describe AI consultant, it's, a lot of those skills are things that you would be able to do with, specialty in AI governance.
So coming on to that, can you tell everybody a little bit about your courses and what you do so that they know a little bit about you?
Sure. My company is Dr. David LLC, and I started in privacy. So really, the courses, the ecosystem that I've put together, it was what I wanted when I was preparing for IAPP certifications. So at the moment, the 4 courses I offer, they're all certifications that are offered by IAPP. IAPP used to be the International Association for Privacy Professionals. And then in September of 2024, they rebranded to just IAPP. And they did that because they expanded from being focused just on privacy to being privacy, AI governance, and digital responsibility, which is very broad. They've been hinting over the last couple months that there may be a cybersecurity law certification around the corner,
Oh,
which would
wow.
be really exciting. But when I was preparing for these certifications, again, just a few years ago, I was brand new to privacy. I wanted to learn as much as I could, and IAPP certificates were the gold standard. They still are. And so as I started preparing for these certifications, I noticed that there weren't on-demand video lectures. There wasn't something that I could listen to at the gym, while I was washing dishes or cooking or whatever. And there weren't, flashcards. There wasn't like a one-stop shop, a single resource that had everything I needed to prepare for success. And so, I did the CIPP-US, passed that. I did the CIPM. So CIPP is Certified Information Privacy Professional. IAPP has a number of these certificates, and they're based on different jurisdictions. So there's one for United States, one for Europe, for Asia, Canada, China. They have one for Brazil. They have one for France. Those are more for data protection officers. And then, so I did that one first, the CIPP US. Then I did CIPM, which is the management certification. And as I was going through the certifications and experiencing the pain of not having what I needed, I was also watching a lot of Shark Tank. I've got 2 boys, they love Shark Tank, and I kept hearing entrepreneurs talking about, they're asked like, how did you come up with this idea, or why did you decide to do this? And so many of them were saying, I felt like I had to do it because if I didn't do it and someone else did and made a successful career out of it, I would regret it my whole life.
Yes.
And so I was finding like, all right, well, I'll just try it. And so I started with the CIPP US. I put that out, and it was well received. And I was like, okay, well, I'll probably do another one. And as I was thinking about the next one, this was around the time that the AI governance professional certificate came out.
Oh, wow.
And, again, I was interested in AI. My supervisor at the time had already said, hey, this is something, to have on your radar. We'd like to get you involved in this. And so, I started looking into the certificate, and again, nothing, no single resource, no textbook, nothing like that. And I was like, all right, well, this time as I study and I'm putting together all of my own resources and material, at the same time, I'm going to build out a course. Okay. And
Wow.
so, so I passed the exam, got the certificate. built out my course, and I was one of the very first to market in the world with this because this was brand new at the time. And within like the first couple of days, it just went viral. It got picked up. And that's really what drug me towards artificial intelligence. Or maybe I didn't need to get dragged over there because I was already very interested. But it was, I was pushing myself and being dragged. And I mean, that's really been, my hero product has been the AI governance professional certificate. I also have a course on CIPM and the CIPPE, which focuses on the GDPR. I've got an ISACA course that's right around the corner that focuses on AI security management. So
People globally.
it is globally. For all four of my courses, I have over 8,300 students now in more than 120
Wow.
countries. And those numbers like really surprise me. So people all over the world for sure. I have a very active Discord community. We've got almost 2,000 learners there, and it's just been really nice to get to connect with people as they're going through the course material, and they're aiming for a promotion, they're looking to pivot into privacy or AI governance. As far as the type of people, I would say it's everyone, right? Everyone on the spectrum from I know absolutely nothing about AI whatsoever. This seems like a good place to start, all the way to people who have been in AI and data analytics for years, software engineers, people that are leading programs and are already very smart in this area.
Yeah.
And, again, as someone who is, I still consider myself relatively new to information technology, only been in the space for about 5 years now. It's validating, you know, because I suffer from imposter syndrome when those people that have been doing this for years, if not decades, when they enjoy the course, when they tell me that they have learned something, when they don't say I've completely screwed it up, like that's a really nice feeling. But yeah, it's people from all over, right? Absolute beginners to people that have been doing this for a long time.
I have to say, honestly, your depth of knowledge, it is amazing. And like I say, I was surprised how new you are to the area because, you're not just talking from a slide and you're not just talking from a textbook. You can tell when you are speaking that you understand fundamentally what you are talking about. And I've been in one-to-one sessions with you like this and team sessions where people have thrown questions about you about the intricacies of AI and not just the content that you've built, and you can answer them extremely knowledgeably. So your depth of knowledge is definitely, it shines through, which is amazing. And you are such a good educator, and you give so much to the people who are learning your courses. So you don't just put out a video and let people learn for themselves. You are giving so much back. Which is amazing. Honestly, I mean, I've done lots of online courses through, different avenues from MIT to Coursera to lots of different instructors, and yours is genuinely
This is where you and I are a lot alike, is that we both have a mission of AI for everybody. That's one thing that really drew me to you when we first connected on LinkedIn a while ago. I feel that AI is technology. I feel that there is room in AI for everyone, whether you're using it as a tool, you're using it to build a business, you're just curious, you actually want to, build tools or applications for people. You want to use it to be creative, right? Like to create visual art or to help you with writing or to create music. There's so much potential there. And I think it's unfortunate when folks for I think it's unfortunate when folks feel that it's unapproachable, maybe because they're scared. And I think it's even more unfortunate when there are people that maybe have deep technical expertise that are trying to gatekeep, right? And
yes,
so
yeah.
one thing I'm trying to do is just to say, like, hey, look, I'm new at this. I'm still figuring things out. I try and share a lot of what I learn publicly so that, if this is something you're interested in, this is how it is for everyone. And if people want to learn, I want to help them get to where they want to be.
I love that message, and I agree with you. There's lots of people with a deep technical background who are very open to AI being for everybody, and then there is a subset of people who do gatekeep it. And there's also a little bit of snobbery that, well, you're not an AI person because you don't have a technical background. And I think it's a shame because, as you say, it is for everybody, and it's a technology that everybody can contribute to and get involved in. And one thing I always say to people is even the people who build the AI tools and the AI systems don't actually know how it's creating the output it is. When they're built with neural networks and deep learning, they don't know what it's capable of. And when I go out and talk to businesses about AI, there can be somebody who's never sat in front of ChatGPT or Claude or any LLM, and they can go on it for 10 minutes and teach me something because everybody has a completely different experience and it depends what you put into it as to what you get out. And that's one of the amazing things about it, that it shouldn't be gatekeeping and it shouldn't be snobbery. Everybody has as much to give and receive from AI. So viewers are very much beginners and they may never have used an AI tool because they're still scared of what might come of it. So what would you say to people? So we've talked about the business aspect of, managing data and keeping it secure. What about as an individual? Think about, the normal person on the street who goes home and switches on ChatGPT. What are the things that they have to be aware of in terms of what not to upload, what to upload, any tips and tricks you can give them?
Yeah. So I think probably the very first thing that everyone needs to know about, your standard large Google or Gemini is that they can make mistakes. Number one. And so it's a mistake. I mean, what was it? Back in my day, and unfortunately, that's something I say way too often with my kids nowadays. But back in my day, my parents always told me days, especially with my youngest, I have to say, don't believe everything you see on YouTube.
Yeah.
But now, more and more often on the internet, I'm having to tell people, don't believe everything that ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude tells you, okay? Because these tools, at a very fundamental level, they are predicting the next word. Okay. An analogy that I like to think or like to use is think about jingle bells. All right. Around Christmas time, you can say jingle bells, jingle all the way. Right. So we know what the next word is. But out in the world, right, throughout the history of that song or that jingle, there's not only been one set of lyrics for Jingle
Yeah.
Bells, okay? So when I was a kid, we also said, Jingle Bells, Batman smells,
Yeah.
Robin laid an egg, okay? Like after Batman and Robin. And so there are all of these different iterations of these lyrics for the same tune. And so, 9 out of 10 times, maybe it is Jingle Bells, Jingle All the Way. But 1 out of 10 times or 1 out of 100, it's Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. Okay.
Yes.
So the models are learning to predict words, right? They're trying to give you, based on your query, what is the most likely next word. And so because it's probabilistic and not deterministic, meaning that it's a matter of chance, right? What words you're going to get next, they are prone to being wrong, to providing false information. Okay. So if you're going to it for medical advice, for love advice, for finance advice, if you're doing research for a paper, whether it's personal, for school, or for work, double check your work. So that's number one, is just these are prone to mistakes, double check your work. As far as what to upload and what not to upload, most of these tools nowadays have privacy settings that I think most people are going to be familiar with. So, on social media, for example, if you use Facebook, if you use LinkedIn, or whatever your social media platform of choice is, there are privacy settings that you can go into and you can tinker with a little bit. So, for example, on LinkedIn, maybe only people that have your email address can add you as a connection. And so that's, you're putting some friction there saying that I'm not going to have just random people adding me.
Yeah.
Or, people can't mention me in their comments or, this, that, and the other. Maybe my profile is not publicly discoverable. All right. These different privacy settings. For the chatbots, you can do the same thing. You can go in and you can say, don't retain my data for retraining and so forth and so on. So if you are concerned about what you're talking to your chatbot about, the types of documents that you're uploading, if you want to keep that private, you can limit some of that with your privacy settings. So number one for everyone, they make mistakes, right? There's no intention there. It's all just statistics. They make mistakes, to double check your work. And number two, if you're concerned about privacy, there are some settings that you can toggle on and off to help preserve some of your privacy.
Amazing, thank you. I read a quote a couple of years ago. I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was desperately trying to learn about everything AI and cramming, and I remember it getting completely overwhelming. And then I read a sentence that somebody had written. It was a female, maybe she was at Microsoft, and it just said, "It's not rocket science, it's just math." And it put everything into perspective for me because sometimes we get scared that AI is this huge thing that we're never going to understand. And we just have to remember it, the basics of what it is and what makes it. And I think it brings us back down from that feeling of overwhelm. So we're nearly out of time. So what's next for you? What's next for Dr. David? Where are you heading in your career with AI and governance and everything else?
So I've got really like three exciting projects for 2026, and I'm trying to stay focused just on these. So I'm creating a premium offering of the AI governance professional training that I do. All of my training right now is on demand, so you enroll in the course and you complete it on your own schedule. But over a lot of people that have come to me that have asked for my specific, mentorship for my time. They want, a cohort of people, a study group. They want a little bit more structure and some one-on-one coaching. So I'm now offering the AIGP Accelerator. I'm going through a couple of pilots of that and plan on, enrolling for that in the early spring. So for Dr. David, that's a new premium service offering that's right around the corner. Also, I'm learning how to actually build models.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm enrolled in an MIT course right now. We're just doing very basic classical machine learning, but you have to start somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
And as I've started sharing ideas with people, there's very clearly an appetite to watch me build things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing some live streaming later in the spring where it's just going to be me working on different, data science and machine learning building projects. Again, the idea is like, you know, again, back in my day, we would go over to our friend's house and watch them play Nintendo on the TV. I know kids do that nowadays on Twitch. It's the same thing. But for me, it's going to be like watch me build a model just to see if I can do it. But then at the same time, for people that like want to hang out and watch and ask questions, I think it'll be a good opportunity to learn as a group. And also, I haven't found really any good approachable resources
Yes,
that
yeah.
provide that, right?
Yes.
Like from the thing for 2026 is to get involved in auditing.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I feel really comfortable. I understand AI governance at a high level and, some details as well, but I really want to start getting my hands dirty. And so part of learning how to build models is also learning how to implement AI management system, what works well, what doesn't work well, and continue to give back to the community.
Amazing. It's going to be a busy year ahead.
It is. Yeah, I'm really excited for it.
I love that. So for everybody who is interested in knowing more about Dr. David's courses that you have available now, like I say, I'm currently in his accelerator pilot. It's absolutely amazing. But even the courses themselves, I think you touched upon this earlier. If you want to know about AI, the course that you offer gives such a broad understanding, broad yet deep understanding of lots of different facets of AI. It gives you the history of AI. It teaches you about what AI is and the algorithms and supervised learning, unsupervised learning. So the way that the models are built. It goes into data, goes into governance and legislation and law. It goes into deploying. And I mean, it's such a broad range from the whole AI life cycle. I would, even for people who don't want to go into governance, I would suggest it is such a good base for people to learn a broad scope about AI. So, people check it out. It's an amazing course. It will give you massively in-depth knowledge. But yeah, thank you very much. Do you have any last minute messages for everybody?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really grateful to speak to you and the other people of the Cayman Islands. If you're interested in connecting with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, and my website is drdavidprivacy.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Tamsin. You too.